We are live and so excited with a book launch today. This is Paul Weston. His book is Running in the Rain. Paul, you want to showcase it? I didn't get mine in time. Yahoo! Running in the Rain. Seriously, how hard can it be? Paul is the #1 bestseller. I'm Becky Norwood with Spotlight Publishing, and we've worked together to make this book launch happen and get his book out to the world. Paul, what was the inspiration for this book? Because you've now become international bestseller.
Yep.
You're #1 in many categories throughout Canada. You're also, and that's in the Kindle version, but you're also #1 in Canada for your paperback book, which is pretty exciting.
It is.
And you're also bestseller in the U.S. on paperback, so this is very cool. Very cool. And I was looking this morning, you have not just a hot new release, but your #1 new release in some of those categories. So pretty awesome. So what's this experience like? What is the vision behind going through the process of being an author and actually bringing this book to the world? Kind of a lot of questions all at once.
Yeah. I'll try and answer the first one if I can remember it. So the inspiration behind the book, I guess, was I've always been a very organized person. I think that comes from my parents, who get mentioned in the book quite a bit. They got me in a place where, get things done today. Don't delay, don't dwell, don't wait on them, get them done. And at a young age, at 16, I joined the military. And that's one heck of an organized place. So for me, a really good stead. I've always been very disciplined. I'm an endurance athlete, triathlete, runner, cyclist, and so on. And for me, it's all about having a system in life. I think you get so much more out of life if you have a system to get things done. And writing the book fit into a system. I had to allocate hours in the day to sit and write. And even when I was traveling, I used to do a lot of travel with business back pre-pandemic times. I could sit on an aircraft and just percolate ideas and know that for that hour I'm going to be sitting and writing stuff and doing that. And I see a lot of people who lose out on so much because they don't have or don't appear to have systems in their lives. They kind of let each day sort of float past them, and they might do this, they might do that. And people said, you seem so organized and so disciplined to get things done. You should perhaps write a book about it. So I thought about it for a while, and I figured, well, if that's kind of the reputation I've got, I probably should get on about it. So I spoke about it for a couple of months last year, and then in March I decided, come on, let's get on with this, and I cracked on with it, and it's a great journey. I really enjoyed writing. Actually, I found it very, very interesting going back to forward.
It's quite a process, isn't it? Yeah,
it is. Yeah, I mean, it's a case of, I've taught many people to do public speaking, and one of the things I tell them is don't write a script and then learn the script. Drop things into, say, corners of a room. So put a box of stuff in one corner, box in another corner, another corner, walk around the room and talk about those boxes. And I've seen people that are really effective public speaking and have learned that process. And that's what I did here, really. I had sort of folders on my laptop. I had a notebook, and as ideas came about the theme of the book, I dropped them in and then start to develop those ideas. And actually, I had so much stuff out there that Susan, my editor, said, we've got to take some of this out. You got enough here. Probably another book, which I'm already thinking about. But she's got me to thin it down a little bit. And we got to, I think, is a very workable size. So, it was a great, really enjoyed the process of writing the book. Writing the book was the easy bit.
That's what I always say, writing the book, that's the easy part. It's all that goes with it, the marketing, everything. And what I really enjoyed is when you created your short videos that went with each chapter, that what that does is make the book interactive. They just scan a QR code and here you come to life speaking. But that gives them a reader a really good idea of how you are to work with and what wisdom that you impart. So that's kind of a fun process. But truly, I always say that being an author isn't for the faint of heart. It's tough to really be able to pull it all together. It takes a lot of discipline, really, to get those books written. And I know that you experienced that well. What has it been like to know that you're now a #1 best-selling international best-selling author.
Yeah, well, it's an amazing feeling, and I really appreciate the work that you and everyone at Spotlight has done, and also Susan, my editor, who's been terrific, and also my launch team. I mean, you suggested the process for me. Some really great people who've agreed to give up some time to read the book, to do reviews, to help promote the book, spread it around. It's been a really interesting journey, and those people, I think, are very genuine people. I said, look, you know, I want you to give an honest review. I don't want you to feel like you have to do me a favor and write something. And I know those people, and I know they would have got back to me and said, look, you know, I didn't particularly like it, or it didn't fit with me. But all the people who reviewed the book and given us some really good feedback are genuine. You know, they're good friends of mine, so it's aligned with them. And I think what I found interesting is several people have commented on this, that they felt the book was quite conversational. A couple of people said it felt like they were sat in the bar chatting to me when they were reading the book. They could hear my voice. And I think I've really achieved something if I do that, because I wanted it to come across as me. And I said to Susan when we started editing, I said, I don't want to change the style of the book. I want this to be me that comes across in the book. And I didn't know Susan before we started on this journey. She was recommended to me by a couple of good friends and business associates. And, you know, reading the reviews, I think the fact that it really does come from inside me, everything I'm saying there is stuff I practice and I believe in. And I've seen it. I mean, a lot of the stuff I'm sharing is stuff I've worked with in it as a consultant with clients and people and friends and family over the years, and sort of helped and advised them on various things. So I really think it's the fact that it's really sort of natural for me to speak like that. And when people tell me it sounds like it's coming out as if we're sat having a chat over a drink, then yeah, I think it's great. And to get to #1 bestseller is amazing. It's really great feeling. I'm grateful for my wife as well, who's been behind me all the way.
she's the rock that's kept you going, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I just have to chime in here. That when those rankings started coming in, and your emails, Becky, and keeping in touch with us and everything, those emails and the messages that he's hit #1 in all these categories, it was really like winning the lottery, like a total surprise and total delight and pure joy. So thank you so much for helping us.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the work you've done in the background. There's been a lot of back and forth to make all of these, you know, all the working parts that makes a book be successful.
Yeah.
Thank you for all you've done.
It really is a team event. Yeah. Totally.
So Paul, when in your book, could you maybe one key idea that you share in this book that is very good for organizational, for the sake of organization? And I can say, as a busy publisher, organization is key, and I still find myself kind of falling down. And I learned a lot of really good points from your book. What are your key, if somebody's to pick this book up, and I've got the link on the scrolling on the banner, and I'll put it in the chat. What's some of the key points that you want them to walk away with?
So I think the first one is chapter 2. We get into something I call energy zones. I've had a theory for a long time, and the more I share this with people, the more people agree and say, yeah, you're really onto something here. We spend every minute of our life in one of 3 energy zones. We're either in our professional energy zone, where we're doing stuff that brings in money, put food on the table, a roof over our heads. We're either in our personal energy zone, doing stuff that's totally me. So sitting, reading a book is very much a personal energy zone. Going to yoga, for me, going for a run or a bike ride or a swim or something. And finally, social energy zone, where you're spending time with family, friends, colleagues, or whatever. You're in that social zone. Now, the problem is, if you blend those zones together, the quality completely diminishes. So, for example, if you're at work, you know, working on a project, and your phone keeps beeping, and it's your wife, your husband, your partner, whatever, keeps texting you about something like, what do you want to get from shopping tonight? What do you want for dinner tonight? Did you want to watch Netflix tonight? That's kind of diluting your social energy zone with your personal energy, with your professional energy zone. Your quality of work in that professional energy zone is going to decline. And the same thing happens if you're sat on your deck in the evening with a glass of wine, reading a really good book, Running in the Rain, for example, international bestseller. Reading the book, and your phone beeps, and it's an email from your boss who says, hey, just checking in if you finished that project this afternoon at 8:30 at night. Well, if you stop reading the book and reply to your boss at 8:30 at night, then you've just diluted your personal energy zone with your professional energy zone, and your quality of time in that personal energy zone is going to be diminished. You know, now you're waiting for the next text, and you've lost that sort of concentration on the book. And then social energy zone is when you're having dinner with your family and you've got a teenage, daughter or son in the room who keeps going on Snapchat or Instagram or whatever the apps are now, it destroys the family environment. Put the phone down, spend the quality time, get your work done, get it finished in your professional energy zone, and then spend quality time in your personal energy zone. And I know a lot of people, I do yoga as well. A lot of people go to yoga classes and they say, oh no, obviously I'd never reply to a text in a yoga class. So why do you reply to text when you're supposed to be working?
Right.
It's so true. We allow ourselves to go into those zones and be really effective in those zones. And sometimes we allow them to be diluted, and a dilution just drags stuff on. I mean, I've worked out an average of probably 12.5% at least every day we get distracted at work. And if you think somebody who's, say, $50,000 a year, that's over $6,500 a year that they're not actually working on the work they're supposed to be doing, which means they probably have to catch up in evenings and weekends when they're not paid to be doing that. So there's a knock-on effect to all these distractions because we dilute these zones. That's one of the key areas. The second area really is chapter 3, and this has got a lot of attention from people. Goals really stink. And I heard a podcast from an organization really who wants a similar vein for me. They talked about, think about process, not product. When I say goals stink, we all have goals, but if you think about two teams competing in football or rugby or hockey or basketball, whatever, they both have the same goal. They want to win the game. Well, one of them is going to win and one of them is going to fail. Systems are what really count. And the process I explained in chapter 3 is the fact that our goal is simply a measurement tool to see if our system works. So if you're working on a deadline to publish a book, the goal is to get the book published and out and sold at a certain time. If you don't achieve that, it's probably your system that's let you down. And we blame the goal. Oh, this goal was ridiculous. It's the system we need in place to get things done. And I hear people say, oh, my goal is to run a marathon. And I often challenge them and say, why do you want to run a marathon? And the answer I get is, well, I want to feel healthier. I want to lose a bit of weight. I want to have a better diet, have more energy, feel good about myself. So they run a marathon 6 months later, and the day after they've run the marathon, they go, yeah, I run a marathon. Within a week, they're back on the couch eating hamburgers.
All the things they should not do.
Exactly, yeah, and it takes you back to where you were before. Now, isn't it better to have a lifestyle that means you're fit and healthy all the time? So the system is, I'm going to get up every morning, I'm going to go for a run, I'm going to go for a run in the evening, I'm going to do some stretching, I'm going to join a running club, I'm going to buy some good running equipment and enter the odd race, including maybe a marathon once a year. The marathon becomes a measurement tool to see if your system is working, because in a year's time, if you say, I've lost a pile of weight, I've kept it off, I'm eating healthy, I've got lots of energy, and I'm running a marathon once a year, that is where the goal is useful. But really, it's a system that counts. Because when I said I wanted to write a book, that was my goal, but I knew I had to create a system to get the book written.
Yes. That's one of the chapters I got really a lot out of. Actually, the whole book was excellent, but without the systems in place, publishing could almost be a disaster. Without every piece of the things that I do to help an author bring that book to the world. And that goes into every aspect of life, from whether you're going to do your daily walk or run, whatever that is, that exercise, to the way you eat, everything. It all goes together. And to your comment about the previous chapter on diluting that personal time or your work time, I have finally come to the place where I don't even look at my cell phone through the day. And I figure if somebody's calling me, they'll leave me a message if they truly want to talk to me. And I will get back when, during a certain period of time. But what I found that to be the most productive, because otherwise you get interrupted, you get off track, you don't get to get back into the groove. It takes so much time to do that, and pretty soon you're forgetting where you were left off on certain things that are so important.
Yeah, no, exactly that. And, we're often a victim of our own efficiency when we reply immediately to an email from someone, because, we often send, to be honest, Becky, I might send you an email and say, okay, over to you now. I've got work to do. And if you reply too quickly, I go, oh, Jesus, Becky, now I feel like I've got to reply.
I know. And you're usually in the last bit of the publishing process, there is I've got to keep that answered.
Because when I was working with Stephen on the editing, she sent me an email saying, I'll get the first draft of the edit back to you tomorrow, which I think was a Saturday. So I said, great, Sunday, there's not much going on. I can actually sit and go through the whole thing on Sunday. So I allocated 5 or 6 hours on the Sunday and did a complete read of her first edit, sent it back to her on Sunday night. And she said, that's the fastest anybody's got a book back to me. usually 2 to 3 weeks. Now I've got to jump into the second edit because I wanted to move this thing forward. So she said, oh, geez.
Oh, man, what did we do to myself?
Yeah, but we're often victims of that. We reply too quickly when we don't need to. And I talk to people who say, oh, the customer demands a response. Well, maybe they do demand a response, but does it have to be done in the next hour? Or can you finish off the job that you're doing well to a high level and then look at it? So maybe check your emails once an hour instead of every 5 minits.
Right.
Or that makes a huge difference to our being productive and not diluting our zones.
There's just so many moving parts to being, when you apply the standards that you wrote about in the book, it really changes the way you live your life. It really, and you find yourself really much more aware of even the actions that you're taking, the things that you're doing to really serve in the best way that you possibly can, not only for yourself and your well-being. When you are well, everything else works, even in the way we serve. And, your mission in life is to be able to help people understand these processes and bring it to life because it affects their life positively in so many other ways.
Well, even the people who I sent the book out to several months ago, the initial draft copy, to have a look and give me some feedback, everybody who's looked at it has got back to me and said, I'm applying a lot of the stuff you shared in that and it's making a big difference.
Yeah.
And I was just draft copies. So, and I've heard that. I mean, nothing in the book is stuff that I suddenly came up with in the last year. It's all stuff that I've used and I've helped people with. I've talked to them. Focus zones, for example, about, there's 8 principles to closing down into what we used to call dark zones. We now call them focus zones to get a specific task done to a certain level. And there's 8 principles. And if you apply all of them, you'll be very successful at doing that. The people who are turn around and say, I'm getting a job that I thought was going to take me several days done in 20 minutes. I just got in and closed everything off, and I couldn't really. At the end, I was like, "Is that it? Is that everything done?" Because they weren't being stopped every 3 or 4 minutes by something. And when you hear that, it's fascinating how people can be more efficient with what they do.
It's very fascinating, and I have been using those principles since as I went through your book, because there's a lot of back and forth that goes into writing a book and getting it exactly the way it needs to be, and when I was looking at that, I realized, whoa, because I have a number of authors I work with at the same time, and there's a constant flow of back and forth, but to be able just to stay focused and really get done, it takes so much less time, and then you're not completely out of the groove and off to do 20 other things and say, oh my goodness, I didn't finish that project, So
yeah, and then that comes down to the principle where we talk about focus in chapter 4. We talk about what you need to be doing. I mean, there's an old technique I used years ago, and I've taught this to many, many people, the ABC principle. Your A-list is just stuff that you have to do today. You absolutely have to do it today. And there'll be some things in there, like milking the cows is a part of the book, a paragraph I talk about. If you're a dairy farmer, you have to milk the cows every day. Okay, there's no option. They're going to be out in the fields. They're going to be eating,
they're not going to let you alone, are they?
I mean, my parents live next to a farm out in the north of England, and when we go and stay there every morning and every evening, the cows all trail into the barn. They get milked and off they go back into the fields. The dairy farmer doesn't have a day off unless somebody else comes to milk the cows for him. So there are milk the cow tasks where you have to do certain things: checking email, checking your calendar, checking in with your teams, those sorts of things. But then what else do you do that day? Well, there may be meetings that you're going to be doing, and that's okay. But also, what projects, what tasks are you working on? Now, if there's something that has to be done, then obviously it's urgent. It doesn't have to be important, but it could be urgent. So if it's in your A list and at the end of the day you haven't done it and it doesn't really matter, it should never have been there in the first place. And you don't necessarily have to have anything else in your A list. Your B list is stuff you'll pull forward as you need it, and some things will absolutely have to be done today. And you keep some slack in your A list for sudden fastballs that come in. Oh, that has to be done. Great, that's my main task today. B list is a backup. You pull those things in if you can, and it shouldn't be in your B list if you can't do it today. And C is basically your backlog of stuff you'd filter through with a date on as it approaches. And some of those you'll get close to it and think, I don't actually have to do this. For example, reading an industry magazine. If you're in a particular field and you get a magazine every month, you put it in your desk. It's nice to read it if you've got time, but it's not life-threatening if you don't. So, if the time comes up to read that, you haven't got time to do it, it doesn't really matter too much. Nice to have maybe on the train or when you get home in the evening or something. It doesn't have to have a time during the day. So those ABCs make a huge difference to what we do. Because if we follow some of the other principles of urgent, important quadrangles, people tend to pile everything into urgent and important, and nothing gets done. And that's why the ABC is such an effective tool.
That's awesome. Well, for those that are listening and those that will be listening to this video, be sure and pick up a copy of Paul's amazing, really good book. There's some pointers in there that can really make such a difference in your life and really help you to stay on track for we're all busy people, and especially now that we've had the COVID and all the other things that is taking place. We have this online technology, but what I found is we can just get consumed with it. There's just so much, but the focus to get the work done is really the key aspect of living a vital and good life. And so the link is in the chat. Paul, I've really, really enjoyed this conversation. We have a book launch party this afternoon that we'll be joining. So be sure and share that in your social media too for anybody else that might want to join in. But thank you for this opportunity to work with you, and congratulations on becoming a #1 bestseller.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you for your support, everybody at Spotlight. It's been a great journey, and we look forward to more book sales as we process through the next few weeks, months, years. And hopefully beyond.
Absolutely. Very good. And for those that are listening, be sure to pick up a copy. All right.